Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast with KOMO Sports Director Nico Tamurian and Najee Moye.
Well, how's it going, 12? And welcome to a rapid reaction edition of the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast. Hey, a win is a win. It was probably the ugliest game I've seen. But at this point of the season, when you're in a playoff race, can we really argue about the kind of wins we're getting? To that point, I will tell you, this is the lowest points the Seahawks have ever had in a winning effort. 6-3, of course, the final score. 6 is the lowest they've ever had when winning a game in franchise history for a team that started playing football in 1976. So do the math on it. About 48 years, getting my numbers mixed up there. The lowest previous total was 9 in a 9-7 victory. So, hey, listen, some history made and keeping the playoff hopes alive. And I think that's the key here. Is there some things to figure out? Sure. Is there something to be concerned about when Chicago has now lost 10 in a row, thanks to you, but losing 9 in a row heading into it, and you can't score a touchdown against him? I'm concerned about that. Even if somehow you make the playoffs, and again, that kind of comes down to next week. Now we're going to be rooting for Arizona Saturday, of course. But that's concerning, right? That Chicago held you to 6 points. But I digress. The Seahawks won the game. And that's something to be proud of. And what I liked about this game is really the only thing you can like about it, other than getting the win, of course, is the way the defense played. Harassing Caleb Williams, 5 sacks. First team to intercept him in 9 games, which, again, the interception, Caleb's kind of thrown it up for dear life, and it's Reek Willen, who, again, Reek's had an up and down year, and there's been some moments for Reek that weren't the best. So maybe something like that can get him going again. You kind of look for these things. Was it the kind of interception that you'd be like, jumping through the wall about on 3rd and 10 in the third quarter? No, but it ended the game, okay? And the defense stood tall all game long, and I think that's the key you take away from this. Save for some things we saw against Green Bay, save for, letting Minnesota march down in 30 seconds at the end of the game on Sunday. This defense has been lights out and fantastic to watch since November. Again, with those caveats I just mentioned. So to see them, even if it's against a rookie quarterback and a struggling team, to see them get, the Bears locked down for just 3 points, no touchdowns, less than 200 total yards all day. Yeah, that's a win. And you take that any day of the week. I don't care if you're playing the Bears or if you're playing a Pop Warner team or if you're playing the, you get the idea here, the Dynasty New England Patriots. Whoever you're playing, you're proud that you can hold a team to without a touchdown. So that's the Ernest Jones effect. This guy changes so much, and whether it's the idea of things that he's doing, whether it's an actual tackle or interception or whatever it may be, or whether it's just the way he impacts the game by his presence. Suddenly, he's lurking in the middle, so you're not going to try so much, routes in that direction, so to speak. And let's talk about the defensive line, because Leonard Williams, Richard Sherman said this before the game. They needed Leonard Williams to have the kind of game that we saw him have in November, that we saw him have against the New York Jets, where he was just an absolute menace. That's not to say he wasn't good in the losses. It's just to say that it wasn't quite the dominant performances, and I think we got back to that. I mean, the Seahawks ran this game defensively, and that's the key. You won the game, and I think that when you're looking for signs to take away, we talked about the offense struggling. That's something you got to take away. That's something you hope gets better. But the defense playing as well as it did, 3 yards per play for the Bears. Think about that, 3 yards per play. That's pretty impressive. Okay, 179 total yards on 58 plays. I had to glance at that last number there for you really quick. So, by and large, okay, the fact that we can keep this train rolling for another couple days, see what happens with the Rams and Cardinals, see what happens and what turns out to be kind of a nice showdown next week down in LA. It's all you can ask for in this situation, given the current circumstances. Whereas a couple weeks ago, you had that you were in the driver's seat. And if you just picked up even one of those 2 games, Minnesota, or rather, Green Bay kind of had your number. Okay, I get it. Minnesota, that one you let slip away. So that's what makes the current situation quite a bit frustrating. Am I right? So it's nice to see them. I don't want to say get back on track, right? Because it was a 6-3 game. It was nice to see the defense get back on track. 6 points scored by 3 points scored by the Bears, no touchdowns. That's probably the equivalent of something in the teens for a lot of other teams, if you think about it in that perspective. Getting the turnover they needed to at the end of the game, harassing Caleb Williams, doing some really nice things when the offense was sputtering. And that's the thing. if both offenses couldn't get anything going, it came down to the defenses to make big plays, and it was the Seahawks defense with the pressure, the sacks, the interception. And by the way, the one fumble from Farrell Brown on the Seahawks was forced on the Bears by Kyler Gordon, who went to Archbishop Murphy, local guy. So we'll give him the shout out there, UW guys. So that's the only shout out we're giving to the Bears in this game, though. So yeah, that's my takeaway in this, is that this team found a way to win. And I don't think you can be happy with everything. Certainly. I don't think you leave this game if you're 12 and you're like, man, we're awesome. No, I don't think so. But what you can be, man, I love, what you can say that about is the way this team fought, because that was really 2 rough weeks. Okay. And when that sort of thing happens, and I've seen it with the Seahawks in the past, I've seen it with any other number of teams in different sports at different levels. When you have something like this, where you're flying high with 4 straight wins, and then you just get stopped by a brick wall with 2 straight losses. I've seen this happen before, and sometimes that can spiral the season out of control. That can be the end of things. So to have this team, this Mike Macdonald team, and this is clearly his MO in one short season of watching him, to have them band together, to have them, come together instead of drift apart. Were there frustrations out there? Sure. We saw that from DK Metcalf. We saw that from other guys. Okay. But to have this team come together, given the circumstances, backs against the wall, you got to win, but you just lost 2 in a row. That's what you should be happy about. When this game digests, when you watch this video, when you go back and watch highlights, whatever it may be, you should leave saying, okay, they found a way. They knew they had to have it, and they found a way. And that's my most positive takeaway from this. Additionally, again, like we talked about the last few minutes prior, the defense doing its thing, I think, is really special as well. When you look around, interesting, the Geno Smith, only the second time he was under 200 yards passing. Jackson Smith and Jigba is clearly now being targeted by other defenses, only 3 catches for 32 yards. But that is the beauty about this Seahawks team. Noah Fant, 4 catches, actually led the Hawks, beat DK Metcalf by 1 yard on 3 catches. So, that's the beauty of this Seahawks offense, is that there are weapons everywhere, right? We saw a lot of dump-offs to Zach Charbonnet and things like that as well. They can beat you in a lot of ways. And that leads me to my next point here, is that I love that listen, there's not a lot to love about the offense when they don't score a touchdown, okay? But I do love that they committed to the ground game, even without K9. And sure, Zach Charbonnet, 15 for 58. That's kind of pedestrian numbers. But Kenny McIntosh had some pop too. And so what that does for you, should this thing go beyond next week, or even if it is just next week with the season on the line, you feel reasonably confident offensively going in there with Charbonnet and Kenny McIntosh, okay? So that's a takeaway on offense. I like the commitment to the ground game. It feels like in the last couple weeks, when things started to get a little bit out of control, Green Bay takes the early lead, Minnesota takes the early lead. It's just that Grubb wants to pass. And we saw how well they passed at UW last year, but this is not UW. It was nice to see. Now, they weren't trailing, so it's not like they've completely shifted philosophies, but there was certainly a concerted effort to get things going on the ground. Now, you could argue, and I would probably make this argument as well, that they got away from it at times when they probably shouldn't have. But that's something, hopefully this is the start of something, even if it is just 1 game left in the season, at least the regular season. You hope now that they have turned some kind of a corner here. And you hope that this is just the beginning. Now, we also hope that the Rams lose to the Cardinals, and then that sets up something epic for the last game of the season. Seahawks and Rams playing for a playoff berth. I mean, let's see what happens. So, a lot of cool things on the line because of this win. Even if it was ugly, it might have been the ugliest win I've seen all time. And certainly the fact that the Seahawks, it's their lowest point total in a win ever, certainly speaks to that. No touchdowns and you win. 2 field goals and you win. Hey, whatever. The defense is rocking. They did their thing. Let's hope they can keep it going into LA next week. Let's hope the Cardinals, hey, Cardinals fans, we know you love this podcast. Check us out. Hopefully we can get that going and line them up, see what happens next week. But for right now, stuff to clean up. It was ugly, but the Hawks found a way. And that's what means a lot to me. The defense did enough, and this Mike Macdonald coach team, despite 2 straight frustrating as heck losses, they found a way. And by doing that, they keep the season alive, at least for another week. So be happy with that, and hope Mike Macdonald and company figure things out before that showdown in LA next week. Of course, this is the KOMO Sports End Zone Rapid Reaction Edition. We love bringing this to you. We're at the VMAC all week with the team. We're in the locker room. We're with the players. We love to bring you this exclusive insight based on what we hear from talking with the players. Go Hawks! We'll take the win any day of the week.